Okay.
Okay, we're starting. Bernard, if you could tell us about your a little of your background that led you to what you, I suppose you were like a light worker type of philosophy, and up to the point where you confronted a demon because you didn't believe in them at first. So if you could just give us a little.
Okay, I grew up in a Christian home, and I was a reborn Christian, part of the local prayer groups, participating in it pretty much fully, meaning that I participated in everything, and I was absolutely convinced of being saved by Jesus. That pretty much continued into after school, into my first few years at university, studying law. Then the first time my curiosity was tweaked is I met a man that looked at me and started telling me things about me that nobody knew, and I was obviously very curious, because it's like impossible things. Even what age did I have, what illness, events that took place with me in my past 10 years and longer ago. So I asked some questions, and I didn't realize at that stage what was really going on. And he gave me a strange answer. He said to me, "You can read it in my eyes." So obviously I started doing some research, and the closest I could get was iridology. So I did some iridology courses, read the books of Jensen.
Jensen,
he wrote basically the books of iridology.
okay.
And what was fascinating in the eyes was a map of the physical body, where you could see if there was any form of disease brewing or a disease already manifested. So I was, from there it went on to do a lot of reading about homeopathy. Very intrigued by the principles of homeopathy, which basically deals with the premise of like cures like, and that the primary medicines they're using, or the way they are formulating it, homeopathy is working on the spirit of the substance in a way. It's like an imprint more than a vibration, because even at an undetectable level, which means at the level where no vibration is measurable, the effect is still measurable. So obviously one must go and study yourself these things. You can read the books from Hahnemann, or have a look, especially from Europe. Homeopathy spread around the world, so, and it's basically utilizing what is here to assist with correcting dysfunctions. From there I was exposed one evening to a strange event. I was watching TV. At that stage, the very same man that I met has become my father-in-law. So I'm watching TV, and the next moment he said in a strange voice, "Put off the TV." So I put off the TV, and there was another voice speaking through the body. And that was the first time I was exposed unexpectedly to a deep trance medium. Then I only started finding out that he's been able to do that since childhood, and that he's done extensive research at University of the Witwatersrand in Johannesburg with people like Professor Haroff and Arthur Blacksley in studies of particularly materialization, healing, and related matters. And that they have actually been in sessions where materializations actually happened, which was observed by various of these scientists from the university. He was also utilizing his particular gifts during the Second World War in the service of the army. So he started kind of exposing me to things that I have never been exposed to. From my perspective, I was being quite convinced of that if I understood the Bible correctly, that if God is everything, then there is nothing but God, then evil as such, or the devil as such, cannot exist by the very definition of almightiness. So that caused obviously quite a few shockwaves in the family when I started expressing that from my perspective the devil cannot exist according to the scriptures, and that the only evil was in the mind of man. I was then exposed to various of the pastors from churches that tried to convince me that the devil did exist, and they used the Bible for that, and I found that quite fascinating, because using the Bible to convince me about the devil, I'm really not interested, because so to me it simply didn't exist. Man, in essence, from my perspective, was inherently good, but simply through exposure, through various pressures, environment, social, cultural, and so on, man became something that was weak in a way.
You didn't, the original sin aspect of it, didn't think it was valid?
It could not be valid from my perspective, because we're the image and likeness of God, and God couldn't make mistakes. So I considered that, but from my perspective, if I would utilize choice as my reason for sin, then I am simply choosing not to be the image and likeness of God, which is then, a fallacy in itself, because I'm making a deliberate choice of something that I know to be a denial of my true nature, according to the scriptures, to be the image and likeness of God.
Mm-hmm.
So I pushed the point of the image and likeness of God. I studied more and more. I did a lot of reading. I went to various circle development groups, meditation groups. I started investigating psychics to find out if there is anything valuable or valid about it. I had my father-in-law as a deep trance medium. He could do bilocation, he could indicate events that would happen later on by reading, by simply sitting it here and bringing the event forward to himself as if time would be folded, and then say what will happen. And to such a degree that 50% of the times it did happen. 50% of the times it didn't. So that confused me a little bit, because why didn't it? What was fascinating about the deep trance medium was that there was a doorkeeper. The doorkeeper was always the one that would speak first and that would allow the others through. So it was very clear that there was some form of discipline. And in some instances, beings from the afterlife would come through and speak, specifically trying to give messages through to their family that they are not dead. But they were then quickly removed from the medium, and then the doorkeeper would say, sorry, they were not supposed to speak. They're supposed to stand in line and wait their chance, but they never got a chance to speak. At that stage I was obviously already reading a lot of the channelings from angels, archangels, the Michael teachings. I studied many of the various teachings, Ramallah, Seth, all kinds of, and I found a lot of things in there that made sense. Read the Palladian agenda, and all the meantime looking at meditation and understanding what is the point of us being here, because seemingly I found a fascinating thing is that psychics and mediums can normally never help themselves, so they can help other people, but their lives are normally in a mess. And you could see it especially when you start to get closer to them, that during the times when they are spreading the word, the message, they are one person. The moment that is no longer what they are doing, they would become immediately just a normal person with normal shit, gossiping and doing all the stuff that would be seen as normal human social behavior, which was a contradiction to the message they were giving, which was, I found that very curious, because it is as if they were living two lives. To me that didn't make sense, because you either live something or you don't. But what was very clear for me at that stage is that obviously I interpreted it that God is testing us in multiple ways, and that in essence it is about our intent in our actions. I had a fortunate experience after studying, as that I became a policeman. 4.5 years I was in the police force, trained in crowd control. I was a fraud detective, and I saw something there that was quite disheartening. I studied law, and I realized during my time in the police that there was no law, that there was no protection to the average man in any way whatsoever, and that there are people that are deliberately virtually evil.
Now, how did that realization just creep up on you? Was it a gradual process?
It was gradually as I was working with people, and I had always a notion I would discuss things with even the criminal to understand their behavior, their reason why. And mostly they were either addicted to drugs, or they are greedy, they want a lot of money, or they're in financial trouble. violence mostly came from alcohol, which was the experience while I was in the police in terms of the cases we were dealing with. There was also groups that would work together that has deliberately taken on society as a form of a gang to generate income and to specifically target the gullibility of the average human being. And they would get away with it because the average human being is truly gullible and have no notion that they could be deliberately deceived in their face. And therefore they would deliberately deceive in the face. But during